Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be looking at the chapter 10 homework here and going through the practice with feedback kind of exercises here. And as per usual, I will let you all use your notes and other resources to do the matching and definitions, etc. And let's move on to the work problems here on tab 2. So here in problem 2, we have a company, Nederlander Company. We make 3 products, whatever these are, Klompen, Cass, Fiats. We're considering dropping the Fiats product line based on the following financial data. Okay, so here's these, and these. Must be some kind of European company, I guess. We have euros in here. We have sales, variable costs, and remember, this is kind of our contribution margin calculation. If you remember, sales minus variable cost gets us contribution margin, and then we break out our fixed costs below to get our net operating income here. And you can see we have a net loss for the Fiats line, and that kind of is leading to us to consider whether or not this is worth even having as a product that we sell. Let's see here. Okay, it tells us we have special equipment as an expense, and the special equipment can be used exclusively by each segment, can be sold for approximate book value. Okay, so we're going to complete the following table to show the effect on the company's overall profit if it keeps or eliminates the specific product line that is having the net loss, basically. And so what we want to consider when we're thinking about is eliminating a segment or keeping it, right, is what is the effect on the overall indirect costs and how those are going to be reallocated amongst the other lines, essentially, right, to see if it actually is beneficial or not to keep the Fiats, because the problem that can happen is if we still have all these indirect costs that are being allocated here, if those don't go away, then they basically just get pushed over into these product lines. And so unless there's a way to significantly reduce these indirect fixed costs, then we're going to have a problem, right? So the specific fixed costs here, let's see. So as far as contribution margin goes, if we drop that, we're not going to have any impact, essentially, right? Because that's just the sales and the costs for that specific product line going away. The advertising expense, this is specific to the Fiats, and that will go away as well. The depreciation of that special equipment, with the note here, we're basically saying that this equipment could just be sold. We won't take a loss, or at least not much of a loss or a gain. We're approximately selling it for the book value, so this just can go away. We won't continue having to depreciate this equipment for the other products. So far, all zeros, right? Salaries of our segment manager. So if we don't have that segment, then the salaries related to that manager then will go away. And so far we've got all zeros, but here's where the real crux of the issue comes in, is we have a portion of fixed costs that are indirect, and so they've been allocated out, and so those are going to have to be allocated elsewhere, right, onto the other products. And so regardless of whether or not we can just see that there's no income, there's no margin anymore, but we still have this cost associated with the indirect fixed cost that's going to be now allocated out to the that'll be allocated out to the other departments, basically. And so that is going to have a negative impact, essentially, on our bottom line, basically. And so when we're looking at incremental profit or net loss essentially, right? We have the 2,700 that's still here that we're going to have to absorb. We're getting to save the 360 essentially, right? This or at least not feel that impact. So that's a positive. It'll be a positive 360 with the impact of the department segment going away. But because we won't have that loss overall, but we still get hit with the 2,700. And so if we combine those two impacts, we're going to have an incremental loss then of 2,340. And this one already said no. I think that was already set actually. If it had it needs a blank so we could make a choice, but no is the right answer here. Basically is the idea, because we do have an incremental loss more or less, because we're saving. We won't have the loss of 360 anymore, but we still will have the cost of 2,700 that then gets passed over, unless you can look at these somehow and reduce the fixed costs, for reducing the segment. But that's kind of, you would need further information, et cetera, to figure that out. So, all right, let's move on to the next exercise here. So on tab number 3, we're looking at an example of making, is this a make or buy type of product or type of problem? And so our company makes 8,000 units of a component part. At this level of activity, the cost per part is these. So $3, $4, $2. So total cost of $15. And so again, we're making this currently. An outside supplier offers to sell the parts to us for $12 each. If we accept the offer to have them produce, we can increase production of another product and earn an additional $24,000 profit. Of the fixed manufacturing overhead, 60% is allocated and 40% is direct. Okay, complete the following table to determine whether you should make or buy the part. Okay, so on these problems, I kind of like to just start putting all the figures in essentially. And yeah, just kind of go from there and figure out what we know, and then think about what else we might need to solve the problem, basically. So we know that it costs us $3 per unit to make it with materials, and we have 8,000 units, so multiply those together to get 24,000. Costs us $4 in labor per part, again times 8,000. The variable manufacturing overhead is $2 per unit. Our fixed manufacturing overhead, let's see, so that's $6 per unit. And let's see here, purchase price. Okay, so that's going to just be in the buy column. We'll put a 0 there for now. And let's see, opportunity cost then is an impact of here where we talk about taking this offer. If we take the offer, we can earn an additional $24,000. So by not taking the offer, we have an opportunity cost of $24,000. So we're bypassing $24,000 if we take the deal, basically, right? So, or if we have it, produced outside, because if it's bought, then we can earn more money. So we add all those costs together, and it becomes 144,000 there. Okay, then let's look at the buy side. So, if we buy it, there's none of the normal types of the costs of production, essentially, right? Because we're not producing it anymore. And so then we can go, and so here we have to think about our fixed manufacturing overhead. And let's see, what are we going to do here? Oh, wait, no, that's not times 0.6. So 8,000 times, so it's fixed manufacturing overhead. So the total is 48,000. And I think here, let's think about this. So it's telling us that of this portion, 40% is direct. Wait, so that's the opposite. So 40% is direct. So if we 40% will go away, but 60% is allocated. So kind of like in the last problem we did, regardless of whether we shut down this segment of production, if you want to think of it that way, we're still going to incur 60% of that overhead. It's not 60% is not going away. 40% was direct, and that part goes away, but the allocated portion just has to be allocated elsewhere, essentially. So we kind of have to eat those costs there. Now the purchase price is just the purchase price. So we have $12 per unit times 8,000. We have no opportunity cost now because we are earning the extra 24,000. So it's not an opportunity cost anymore because we're actually earning it. So then I'm just gonna sum all those up. And here we can say the difference in cost to make the product versus buy it is $19,200. So, all things considered, from a financial perspective, we'd be better off buying the product here, right? Because we're realizing some pretty significant differences. And a lot of that has to do, as you can see, with the additional net income we're earning of $24,000. So if that wasn't there, and this was zero, we wouldn't be having any extra opportunity cost to make more money by buying, and increasing production. Then we'd have a negative situation. But since we can earn the extra 24,000, that absorbs the extra cost of buying, and it offsets, those costs of buying to make it a profitable outcome. And a lot of times when you're thinking about these kind of problems, we think about, the non-financial factors as well. And in this instance, since we're basically increasing production, there's an opportunity to kind of reallocate employee labor as well. So, the employees who may have previously been making these component parts then could be put onto a different part of the production possibly. And, you could avoid potential layoffs, et cetera, from, shutting down this part of the business where we're producing these parts. So from kind of a non-financial perspective, that's a win as well. So it's probably a preferable, or at least, that adds to the pros versus cons of the buy decision. Okay, let's look at exercise number 4. So in exercise number 4, it says, golf company, we made 3,000 novelty golf balls, sell for $7 each, and the cost of the golf balls are this. Total cost per ball, $6. And this year, an overseas company approached us and asked them to sell 900 golf balls at $6 each. The sale isn't expected to affect current sales. Most of the company's overhead is fixed, but variable costs are $1.2 per unit, and selling expenses will increase to $1.10 per unit on the special order. And so we have to figure out whether we should accept the job or tell them, sorry, but we usually sell them for $7. You're asking for $6. Can't do it. And that might be the gut reaction that you initially have when you hear this offer, is like, why would we do it accept less than we normally take for these? But again, remember, we just have to consider the incremental impact of taking on this extra order, not what, like in terms of overhead, how does that affect things, etc. So let's go through and look at accept versus reject, right? So if we accept the order, we're going to be selling 900 golf balls, they said, times $6 each. So that's 5,400. It tells us, let's see, what is it? Okay. Okay, that's the overhead. So now we need to figure out what is it tells us about, sorry. I'm going to just copy this down. So we've got 900 here because that's how many golf balls there are. And the labor is the labor. It's, going to be variable on there. We are selling, and this is, materials, not 50 cents. Yeah, why is that wrong? So it's $1 per unit for materials, 50 cents for labor. So we'll change the 1 there to the 50 cents. Our overhead as 1.2 per unit. So not there, but let's go one. So the additional overhead, it's not like a per unit overhead, or if we come up with that predetermined overhead rate. But we can see that the additional amount of overhead we're going to have to take is just $1.20 per unit. So that's where it really becomes important to analyze the individual portion. And then the selling expenses increase to $1.10. Okay, to $1.10. They were 50 cents normally, but now they're $1.10. So then we can say sales minus all of our costs for this extra order net us a profit of $1,980. So that's something, right? And then if we reject the order, and it's kind of funny just putting it all in, but if we reject it, we have no impact. It's just all zeros, right? So really the difference becomes, is the incremental thing of saying yes or no here, because we said it doesn't affect current sales at all. And so we can see that the incremental sales, the incremental profit is $1,980. And so, yeah, all things considered, we should take the order because we're going to make profit on it. Now, again, these problems don't necessarily factor in non-financial factors, but you could run into some issues maybe if current customers realize you're selling the product cheaper to an overseas company. If a competitor finds this out, they could exploit that to make your company look bad, so on and so forth. So there's other non-financial factors to consider, but from a purely financial perspective, at least it's a go from the perspective of the fact that we'll be making some profit here on that order. So, okay, let's move on to tab number 5. Okay, so diverse company makes 3 products, and there's a solution video. If you're watching this video, you're watching a solution video, so that's there. Diverse company makes 3 products that require a special raw material that is in limited supply. Following is the financial and production data per input. Okay, so product A, B, and C, sales price, variable costs, and contribution margin. And the material required in pounds here is 2, 1, and 4. We only have 3,012 pounds of the material required to make the products, so it's not unlimited. And we need to calculate the contribution margin per pound and determine the most profitable sales mix given the limited supply of materials and the product demand of 600 units for A, 1020 for B, and 480 for product C. So the first part's pretty easy. Contribution margin per pound, we have the margin, we have the pounds, so we just take contribution margin divided by the pounds. So we get $9 per pound for the first one, $12 divided by 1, and then we've got 25.2 divided by 4. So again, contribution margin is here, pounds are here, and we're just taking one divided by the other. Okay, and so here, if we're going to meet the demand, let's see. So how many? So let's take a look. Okay, so we have 600 units for product A, and pounds of material needed to meet the demand would be 600 times 2, right? Because it takes 2 pounds for each product, each unit. Product B is just 1020 because it's just 1, and then 480 times 4 to get the pounds for product C. Okay, so now we can kind of see what is our maximum, let's max out our most profitable item first, given that we have the limited amount of materials, right? So we want to definitely produce as much as we can to meet demand for product B. Then we'll move down the line to the next most profitable product, which is product A, and it's going to take 1,200, and so 1,200 pounds. So we're producing, how much? That was 600 units, right? So we should produce all the units of B, all the units of A. So we've now satisfied the demand. No, there's no more demand for that one. And then we can kind of look and see, like, how much do we have left? And this might require us to do a little bit of thinking here, or a little bit of analysis off to the side. But we're essentially saying that we've used up 12. So we had, I'm gonna do a little math off to the side, and I was showing my thought process here. We have 3,012 pounds total. We've already used now 10, 20, and 600. Oh, sorry, no, 10, 20, and 1,200. So we've already used up 10, 20, and 1,200 by maxing out demand for product A and product B. And that leaves us with 792 pounds of material left over after so you take 3,012 minus the 1020 and minus the 1,200 because we're maxing out these products. And so with the leftover product that we have, we can make as much product C as we can. And again, like I said, there was 3,012 minus 1,200 and minus 1020 leaves us 792 pounds. If it takes 4 pounds to make 1 unit, then we take 792 pounds divided by 4, and that means we can make 198 units of product C. So we're not maxing out the demand for product C, right? We still have whatever that difference is, 480 minus 198. So the customer still would want to buy 282 products, units, I should say, of product C. We haven't maximized the 480. We've only done 198 out of 480 for C. But because it's our lowest contribution margin per pound, we are okay. We'd rather meet the demand for the higher margin products to start, right? It'd be nice if we had some extra material and we could meet demand for product C to make more profit. But since we have a limited supply, that's where we have to kind of make that decision. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next problem. All right, so now here we are on exercise 6, and in this problem we have a scrap or rework type of question. And in our question here, it tells us that we have $4,500 in units in inventory. It gives us a price, cost for production last year, but we're going to ignore that because those are just sunk costs at this point, and we have to figure out what to do with these things now, right? And so this year's model is much better. We can't sell the product last year's at a regular price. We have two alternatives. We could sell the inventory to a wholesaler for $45 each, or we could rework the inventory at a cost of $27,900 and then sell them for $63 each. Okay. So what is the financial impact of reworking the units? And so this problem doesn't give us a lot of space to really type things in or sort of break them out, but I think, let's think through this here. So $4,500, or the cost would be $27,900. So what would our sales would be? $282,000 minus the cost of $27,900. 27,000, 4,500 units, and then sell them. So the financial impact trying to think about exactly what this would be. I think it's asking us, sorry, I got to kind of think through this one as well. So if we sold it to the wholesaler, our total cost of rework is $27,900, so that's what we have here. We're able 4,500 units, and we're going to, this is the rework and then sell them. So the cost of reworking them is $27,900. The profit we'll make from selling them all is 4,500 times 63. So that's that amount there. And then let's subtract the 4,500 times 54. So this would be the revenue that we would earn just from offloading them to a wholesaler. And no, that one didn't get rid of our X's here. Oh, 45, sorry, $45. I got my numbers mixed up. Not 54, 45. Okay, so that was a lot to put in a formula box, I think, for this problem. If I was reworking this problem, I would probably break this out a little bit more clear. But what we're doing anyway is, and let me do this like a piece at a time. right? Let's see, how can I do this to make sense for y'all? So here, this is us, our sales price that we will get to earn if we rework them is 283,500, but minus 27,900 to rework, right? So we will have a profit of $255,600 if we rework them. But if we say, okay, oops, if we're not going to rework them, so I'm just going to delete out these portions. I'll just put zeros in. And if we're going to say 4,500 units times $45 to the wholesaler, oh geez, then we will, okay, it's on a negative, but we would earn 202,500. So that would 202,500 would be profit to the wholesaler, profit from the wholesaler, I should say, versus 255,600 by reworking and selling them. So it's a little bit hard to see because it's just the differences in the formulas, but you can tell this 202,500 is quite a bit less than rework and sell for 255,600. And so what we're doing in our formula then is just taking, again, the rework and sell part here minus then versus the difference between selling to the wholesaler, and it's an financial impact is an increase in profits of 53,100. So that's pretty good money. You'd probably choose that route, even if there is some frustration maybe from the staff or whatever other impact, non-financial impact might result from doing the rework. So, okay, so yeah, again, that one, not a lot of space to solve the problem. It's kind of a formula-driven, solution. You got to think about this. You almost kind of need some scratch paper to think through this one, but that's sort of the logic there. So hopefully you're able to understand what I was getting at and what the problem's getting at, basically. Okay, let's go into problem number 7. Your company makes 3 products, A, B, and C, and we're considering getting rid of product B based on some financial information, kind of similar to this other problem we looked at previously, right? So we have a negative 900 operating loss for product B, and we've got the decision if we want to keep or eliminate. So again, we have 880 contribution margin, but if we get rid of the product, we have 0 contribution margin. The advertising expenses is going to be real similar to what the other one was. And we're saying depreciation of special equipment is very direct to this product, and we can sell the equipment. We're not going to lose money much because it can be sold basically for what it's worth, or at least what it's on our books as. Salaries of our manager go away, but the indirect fixed costs here are going to stay basically. And let's see, what do we have? Indirect 60, sorry. So $60 of indirect fixed costs. So those indirect costs are going to have to be borne by, they're going to be spread around the other products essentially. So we're still going to have, it'll decrease the profit if you want to think of it that way from these ones. So, not much here other than negative 60. And then what we want to think about is we're saving $90 of loss. So that would be our profit. So I think 8 equals 90 minus the 60. So we're saving $90, but we're still incurring 60 because we're going to spread that around. So we're going to have an incremental profit of $30 by getting rid of the product line. And so from a purely financial perspective, it appears to be profitable to get rid of this product line because the loss is not, and the gain that we make by not recognizing the overall loss is enough to offset the fact that the indirect costs are being spread amongst other products, essentially is the right way to think about that. So yeah, there's always non-financial factors to consider. Getting rid of a segment can have a business impact, can have a public image, perception, reputation, risk type impact. So obviously other considerations to make before you do layoffs and, do some big restructuring of your company or getting rid of a product altogether, etc. But from our, purposes of doing these types of problems, it does appear that it would be financially viable. All right, let's move on to the next problem here. Tab 8. So here's a component make or buy type of problem. So we make 4,800 units, cost per part listed here. A supplier has offered to sell us parts for $14 each. We can increase production if we take the deal, and we'll earn an extra $7,680 of profit if we buy. Of the fixed manufacturing overhead, there's a 70% allocated and a 30% direct piece. So the allocated piece, remember, won't go away, but the direct will. And yeah, let's start working through. So it's 4,800 parts, or units, I should say. It's $4 per unit. I'm gonna drag the formula down just to get our kind of setup there and just update the variable cost in these. So it's 4, 2, 3. Manufacturing overhead. Oops, wait, where are we at? That's $7. Let's see. A purchase price. What did we get? Oh, sorry. That one is just us. That's for this column, right? There's no cost. If we're making it, we're not buying it. If we purchase it, I'll just throw this in right now. The cost to buy the parts is $14 each times 4,800. Now, the opportunity cost, like we showed above, was if we keep making the product, we're going to miss out on $7,680 of profit. Okay, and let's just go through here and fill out some of the ones above. So materials and labor and variable, all the variable costs, these are all directly variable. And so if we're not making this part anymore, we don't incur those costs for having to produce it. And then, like we mentioned, there's 30%. So we have $7. We can link to this. Let's do it this way. So this is the total fixed overhead, $33,600, and the portion that we will, or did I do it the other way? 0.7. So the portion that we can, that we'll still realize, again, similar to the problem we just completed before, 70% is allocated. So if it was allocated here, it's still going to have to be allocated elsewhere. So we're still going to incur the 70% of that total cost. 30% will go away. So that's good. But yeah, let's, okay, we got all the factors there. So there's the cost to make, and here's the cost to buy. So the difference in cost, then, if we buy it, then we're going to incur $6,240. So looks like we should continue to make the product, right? So really, a lot of it comes down to whether our fixed manufacturing overhead, how much of that is allocated, drives a lot of this, and then the opportunity cost as well. So even though you're able to save a couple bucks on the total cost per part, we can't spread around the overhead enough to kind of make it make sense. So cool. Okay, let's look at the next problem. All right, last one, exercise 9. So this company, multi-company, makes 3 products. To follow is the financial and production data. Okay, so again, we have kind of a product mix problem. We have 7,200 labor hours due to a labor shortage. Okay, calculate the contribution margin per direct labor hour and determine the most profitable mix with a given demand of the different products. Okay, so we're going to follow the same logic we did before. So contribution margin per hour. So we're just taking 64 divided by 2, 88.08 divided by 3, 96 divided by 4. Okay, and then, so for product A, we have 640 units of demand. We need 2 hours per unit. We have 1,280 units of demand. We need 3 hours per unit, and then we have what's our demand? 880 times 4 hours there for product C. Okay, so we take a look and say we're maximizing our contribution margin per hour with product A. So let's do that first. Let's max that out for maximize the demand basically. So 640 units, right? So we've maximized the demand. So that's 1280 units. And again, I'm going to do a little math off to the side. So if we have 7,200 as total hours, to allocate basically, we're allocating 1,280 first to product A. That leaves us with 5,920 hours left over. So then we move to the next most profitable per hour product, which is B. And so meeting our demand here is 3,840. So that's 1,280 units. And so that's 3,840. That leaves us with 2,080 hours. So again, 7,200 total minus the total needed to maximize demand minus 1,280 minus 3,840 leaves us with 2,080 hours. So we can't meet demand for product C, but we can do some. So if we take that leftover 2,080 divided by 4, so it takes 4 hours per product, we can make 520 units. So we haven't fully satisfied the 880 units of demand, but we've because we only have a limited supply to get there, but we basically maximized the two most profitable products. And then, maybe something happens in the interim and we get some more labor show up, or more people are, want to work for us or something. So start here and work down towards the least profitable products basically. So cool. Well, that brings us to the last tab there in the exercises, and hope you all found the video helpful. And I'll talk to y'all soon. All right. Thanks, everybody.